I am live, YouTube, and coming in on Instagram. Hello, Instagram. I am on YouTube and Instagram at the same time, so I won't really be talking to anybody in particular, right? Hello, and welcome to Illuminati Mistakes. You probably noticed these little flowers. It's convoluted, but I've been really loving the orange and yellow hues for Aries season. And I happen to have a couple flowers, so I put them out for Ram Dass. If you missed the notice, it is Ram Dass's birthday today. And, well, okay. So I was never super into Ram Dass. Didn't really know much about him. Didn't care either way. Nothing for or against the guy, right? I knew who he was. But in quarantine last year, I watched that little Netflix documentary that they put out about him in his later years. And I was just so touched by the whole thing. It's pretty short. You should watch it, especially today. Happy birthday, Ram Dass. Honor his legacy with his closing tale, his Black Swan, if you will. But I really kind of fell for him in that moment, seeing him in those later years. And I still didn't really explore much beyond that. But when I was doing some readings this winter, he came to me in a Leo reading. If you go back, it was sometime after Halloween because I was using this deck, and sometime before February, I would say. So one of the Leo readings in that time was Ram Dass. And that's when I found out he was an Aries, because I looked it up after because I wanted to know, is he a Leo? He is not. He's an Aries. Happy birthday, Ram Dass. But I was like, oh, you did show up for the fire signs. Who knows? Could be Leo rising. But I thought for his birthday today, I would try to talk to him again. But this time, actually ask. So I feel like, we've been having little here and there's all week because I knew I was going to do this, and that's how I prepare when I do these things, is think about the person that I want to contact for a while. And if it's a regular reading, I'll try to think about whoever's cards that I'm reading. So it's the same thing. He's been on my mind. I've been reading this book all throughout Aries season. How Can I Help? This is the only Ram Dass book I have and have ever read, and I'm not very far into it. So that's my background. If I say something and it means something, I probably won't even know because I don't know much. You know what I mean? So I'm going to try to click over. He said I am doing really great. He also wanted to mention we had very private conversations that we had to debate on what we would do today. It was almost like he agreed to do a performance with me. And it was very cool. He's a very gentle soul. And he also makes a lot of jokes. I don't know if he was funny in his life. I listened to one lecture recently when I was making some art of him, because I participated in a virtual art show today, hosted by Karen Payton Art, featuring some of you lovely people. You can find it somewhere on Instagram. I can't even remember if I posted it. It was on my story yesterday. But anyways, we've been talking, me and Ram Dass. Can't remember his name or anything. But, and I Ram, right? I know that's not it's his chosen name, right? Is that supposed to be like Ram intentionally because he's an Aries? Does anybody know if that was on purpose? Because I love that. I love that. So for me, he feels like Uncle Ram. Does that make sense? But Ram Dass. So there's a couple ways that these things usually work. Sometimes I get straight up channeled messages where I just repeat what I'm hearing. And sometimes it's more of an interpretation powered by the individual and me just interpreting the cards that they present. And this is feeling like a little mix of the two, I would say. I'm hearing, right? So from his perspective, the heart is heavy when the mind is clear. And that's not something I would think of, because you would think a clear mind would bring a clear heart. But he says the heart is heavy when the mind is clear. Because that's when you have to make decisions. He feels a certain amount of rage. And I know I've been feeling very rageful the past couple of days. I think that Aries is slightly notorious for their rage. Slightly. I think all fire signs have that rep. But thank you for that explanation, by the way. That's so interesting that Ram Das means servant of God. And it's purely coincidence that he's also a ram. I absolutely love it. So the heart is heavy when the mind is clear. That really fits for my week, which I don't want to get into. It's a very personal week. His birthday really breaks things up for me in a wonderful way. He's like a little slice of heaven during the week of hell. Okay, and he acknowledges that, right? He's like, that's his whole point. He never wanted to be taken seriously. He wanted to be taken lightly. He wants to be relief. And it doesn't necessarily have to be comic relief to be relief. And I think he was funny, right? People did laugh when he spoke, and he was kind of a goofball. He says he was way more of a goofball than anybody ever attributes to him. You know, people see him as so serious. I just saw this. And he wasn't. And he says that with a big smile now. He projects himself the same way that you would imagine. I believe I saw somebody requested and I missed it, so I invited you on if you're interested. Feel free to also, anybody ask questions that you want answered from him if you want. Because that's the thing, he feels he did get a lot to say, and there's always a whole wealth of information to still speak, which is insane to think. He's very in awe of the vastness of nothing, in which he attains knowledge for everything. And life is so much more beautiful than any sense of peace that you get from death. Extremely poetic. Extremely poetic. He's feeling very happy. The rage is not a constant thing. It comes in and out. It's part of Aries season, you know? It's just part of Aries season. To feel the fires swell and maybe even burn and then come back down and keep you warm. That's the whole energy. He learned to say everything with a smile a long time ago, because people are way more likely to forgive what you're saying if you mean what you say, and that is to say it with joy. Okay? If you truly express and believe that you are joyful, you will therein be joyful. And so people will hear what you say and find it joyful. So even if you catch yourself in a rage or you catch yourself in a bad way, you will still bring joy when you say what you say. Very deep. And so simple. That's what he always thought. His work was so simple, and yet it had this effect. And he knows it was a ripple effect. It was never just him. And that was the whole point. And it's obvious in his work, but it's not obvious in his life. Because people treated him as such an other. People treated him as more Ram than Das, right? And it's not that he was never expecting it. He knew he'd make waves because of his background and his personal story and where he came from. But he never imagined it would matter or add up, not only to so many, but for so long. You know? That's why in his later years, I don't know, I feel like he was pretty checked out. He agrees. He gave up a long time ago. But what does that even mean? Because he never did. He kept the same spirit. He still has the same spirit. But he definitely gave up, in a sense, a long time ago. And so never grieve his death. Never grieve his death. He stayed here smiling to bring others joy because he knew that people would be upset when he passed. And yet, never grieve his death. Never, ever grieve his death. He would have left long, long ago if he chose, right? Nobody, that's dark. These are fun cards. We have Night Song, Hidden Talents, Lady de los Muertos, Acceptance and Equality, and the Witch, the Earthly Weaver of the World. So that's me in a nutshell. This is my secret talents, and now you owe me a tip, and I am indeed a witch. I'm sort of joking, but yeah. So let me get to these cards that are on the table, because again, this is what he wanted to draw. He did a lot of his own talking, but now it's like we'll work together to tell you what the bigger picture. Okay. On one side, right, we have ghost, which is regret. And on the other side, we have eternal love. Love is love is love, and it transcends physical death. Okay. Never fail to love in this life because it will follow you into the next. And if nothing is resolved in this one, you'll just have to deal with them again, right? You can come back at any time. He chooses not to. He thinks that he'll be there on the other side for people to sort of come to him and to be a part of it, before he jumps back in. He's interested to see how things play out in this century. So he just continues to gain wisdom from the place that he left off here, right? And so he's got a lot of love to make up for in his lifetime. Again, as I explained at the beginning of the live, I don't know much about his background. I know a lot of the basic stuff, but I don't know like the like if he was married or if he had children or who his friends were or anything like that. This is the only book I have. Okay, I traded Be Here Now for, I don't know, some weed maybe? I was in the moment. He said, be here now. I said, okay, this man has a lot of weed and I have this book that he wants. Let's trade, right? When in Denver, okay? So anyway, I think he missed out on a lot of his loves. There was some possible infidelity from one side of the relationship, if there was indeed a relationship, okay? And that's one of his biggest regrets, is because he put so much into his spirituality and his peers and his work and his thirst for knowledge that he ignored some of the people closest to him. And not just any people, but the one he loves the most. I'm kind of hearing Sarah, but I don't know if that's a thing. You know what I'm saying? I don't know who the fuck Sarah is, if there's a Sarah, but Sarah is the name that came up. And that's his biggest regret. It wasn't anything that he did. It wasn't any of his work or anything that he didn't do other than not put enough love into certain people. And here we are being reminded that that love follows you into the next realm, into the next life, right? And he's like, God damn it. Now I got to do it over again. Now I got to make up for it. Now I got to spend eternity trying to figure out how I could have been better or what I could have done better or who I could have been better, right? I think his absolute final note there would be, let the ones you love know you love them for real. Show them, appreciate them, do as they ask you to because they need you in some sense. Because in the end, who was he with but his nurse? From what I saw. And he's like, yeah, I mean, that's his biggest regret. So we also have the werewolf, exploring wildness, skull of darkness, blind spots, and the veil, the future. Okay. So exploring wildness, what do you have to say about that? Looking at all of these, I'm hearing something like do as the future comes. Very interesting take, in my opinion. Do as the future comes. Because most people, well, his whole thing, be here now, stay in the present, live in the moment. And he's saying, do as the future comes. Wow, it's like a spin on living in the moment. Because the future is coming, it's the present, right? I love that. Do as the future comes. Amazing. Amazing. Wow. I mean, this guy, right? Everything he says is so simple and it's so impactful, so meaningful. And he said, I was looking at a lot of his quotes recently because I was just making some art, right? And it was about the one that stuck out to me was being quiet and hearing a lot more, essentially. So and so. There's an image out there with the quote on it that I made, but very beautiful, very beautiful. And then down here we have the Barmbrack, sweetness and synergy. We have zombie, control, and we have spider, community, and web weaving. And we got the dum-dums, falling, mystery pop. Let's see what we got. Blue was probably his favorite color. But he agrees that the hues I chose was his energy, right? He often used those colors, but blue is his favorite. It's funny, I dealt with that earlier this week about blue being someone's favorite color. Also in Aries, his birthday's in a few days. Common. He said the shade of his eyes was his favorite color. And looking in a mirror was so easy because he found them so beautiful. He said he never really looked at his own face. He never really cared what he looked like. But it was so easy for him to keep a smile on and to keep a positive attitude because every time he looked into his own eyes, he saw this color blue. At times, he did feel like a fraud, in a sense. Not because he didn't put in the work and not because he isn't worth it. Not anything that could really be explained unless you really understood the way that, we'll say, life works. It's not even any particular industry. And it wasn't necessarily the crowd. But it's just the way things work out, right? So many people would come together to make things happen for him. And while that was very beneficial and it was made things easier and he loved it and it led to his success, it also at times felt like he did not have control over the situation. But spider, community, and web weaving, maybe he's one of the spiders. No. He says he's more on the reptilian side than arachnid side. So many little pieces, so many moving parts and pieces to make something run made him feel like he wasn't even driving it all. But the people around him is what really saved him and caught him in the end. Stories that never end. Kind of playing Spice Girls. Friendship never ends. I'm wondering if that's like his little bit of humor. Well, Carry on, my child. Be still with the great wind. Let the beauty of sprawling meadows soothe you from within. Let butterflies chase you. And yellowtails run. For every story has no end, and therefore has just begun. Says, see, anyone can be a poet. That's really beautiful. Well, hey, by the way, so that was my little live. That was my little channel Ram Dass. If anybody has any particular questions for him, open to it. But other than that, I think that's about it. He feels a little tired still in this other realm, in a sense. And yeah, he could use the rest, but he's happy to answer any questions that someone may have. We're going to do great things. Yeah. It's funny. Oh, hello. Any questions for Ram Dass before we close out for people who have just joined? But to the thank you, he says, your welcome is an understatement. Because you're here, you don't need to be welcomed. And he needs no thanks. That's really cute. But when we were talking about that, the Skull of Darkness blind spots came back up, so I would look out on a personal note. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in, joining us. But yeah, no, this one might be for you, bud. Blind spots. You don't want to get blindsided. He's warning you about someone. Maybe it's me. No, I doubt that, right? Scrying, intuition, midnight, the most magical hour of all, the lamp, remembrance, and skull of flowers, creating through the ashes. One more note I will add before I go. I've been calling Aries this week of Aries season hell week for a long time. But what I noticed this year, and in a way I noticed it every year because it's hell week for me, so it's always kind of spooky. Okay, it's a personal thing. This year I'm noticing everyone sort of saying the same thing, seeing a lot, feeling a lot, hearing a lot, spirits and other forms, right? So I do think of this Aries season as the first spooky season of the year, right? Whereas Scorpio season is the other spooky season of the year. As we all know, we celebrate Halloween and Day of the Dead and All Saints, All Souls, everything in Scorpio season for a reason. But spring, we celebrate Zombie Jesus. I mean, that sounds a little spooky, doesn't it? Okay. Do you want to message me about that? Or do you want me to... these are cool for you, actually, come to think of it. But this little tidbit is to remind you This is a really good time of year, just like it is in October, in November, in that time. The reason I brought that up is because that's a great time to connect with your loved ones, your ancestors, your guardians, your angels, whoever, because everything is so thin. But it kind of happens for the spring equinox too. And so now's a good time. Stay up late. Channel your thoughts into something specific. Think about the person you want to contact and work with whatever comes through from them. Okay. Anyone really can do it in a sense. But if you're watching this, I just feel like you should take advantage of this time. There's definitely people who would love to talk to you, especially you, actually. Now that you mentioned you want a reading, yeah, you should get one of these. It's good shit. So, Ram Dass, once again. Something I think he didn't really take on in this life, right, was he liked pumpkins. That might be why I'm feeling the orange so much, even though his favorite color was blue. He really liked pumpkins, and he kind of thought of himself as the pumpkin king, and he just sort of thought that's what he looked like. And he's glad people like his face and find him so friendly, because on the outside he thinks he looked a little crazy, like a pumpkin king. Crazy is not a nice word, I guess, but pumpkin king. That's cute. So work with connecting, okay? If you want to talk to Ram Dass, cool. If you want to talk to someone you know, cooler. Tonight would be a good night to do it, I think. Aries season in general, but something about tonight, you might as well try it. Stay up till midnight. Follow your intuition. If you start doing weird shit you don't know, you pick up a pen or you light a candle or you want to take a bath or something, just go with it. Any thought that comes in your head, address it, move towards it, fulfill it. Think about the person that you want to contact, maybe then light a candle or, just start talking to them out loud. And I think you'll be surprised at the responses you come up with in your mind. But I am open for personal readings. I do the Halloween deck for anyone upon request. So just chose Ram Dass on his birthday because he's come through before, and I figured he'd come through again, and he did. And he loves to be social still. He loves, he does have a little bit of Leo in him, I think, because he doesn't mind the spotlight at all. So, this time I've been saying it for about 5 minutes. I am gonna go. So thank you for joining, and very happy birthday to Ram Dass. And yeah, if you're interested, message me. Okay. Namaste. Love you all. And I'll be back soon. Good night. Good night. Oh, this one didn't. I hit end stream. And then I went to go end my other stream, and I didn't double confirm that it was ending this one. So here we are. Once again, a good night.